You're now locked in to HBCU Pulse. We're the #1 outlet for HBCU life, talking about everything that's important to our culture, from on-campus issues to politics and what's trending on the yard. We always keep that same energy. Don't touch that dial. You're listening to HBCU Pulse Radio.
What's going on, everybody? This is Randall Barnes, the founder of HBCU Pulse and the host of HBCU Pulse Radio, in the building for another special edition of the show. On today, we're talking HBCU sports, HBCU football in particular. So a lot to get to. Arielle, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I feel like it's been so long. There's so much going on this weekend, so it's a lot to unpack right now.
It is. And, you know, we're going to go on and hop into it, because it's a lot to unpack with the SWAC Championship on Saturday, the Bayou Classic, and then so much more that we're going to be discussing. So let's go on and get into it. Let's talk about Deion Sanders, Coach Prime. So he is 11-0. He was undefeated this season. Had a really great season, a couple of hiccups and a lot of conversation about certain comments and the Eddie Robinson Jr. situation. But he's been mentioned in a lot of talks for coaching jobs for a lot of different schools. Of course, Auburn, Georgia Tech, it was different schools he was mentioned for. But we know definitively that Deion Sanders was offered a job at Colorado, and he even confirmed it. And a lot of folks in the media, Keyshawn Johnson in particular, on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max on ESPN, like, they've been pushing for him to take the job. It's some media members that say, hey, don't take that job. It's another job that's coming. But a lot of HBCU folks are a little bit sad, because it's like, dang, already? And it ain't been like a full 2 years. The season ain't even over yet. You still got the Celebration Bowl if you make it out the SWAC Championship. So it's just a lot going on. So, Arielle, I want, just to toss it to you. So first and foremost, how do you feel about the fact that, number one, he's being offered these jobs, and number two, the fact that it seems like the media just continues to report these jobs and almost manifest him into these other jobs outside of Jackson State?
I mean, well, first, congratulations to Jackson State on having an undefeated season, and then the SWAC Championships. We know that's going to be amazing, and I can't wait to see them progress. So congratulations on that. To be honest, and it's always me. It's Ari. It's in my name. It starts with an A. We're always going to play devil's advocate over here. I think he's a good coach. He's beyond okay, but he's not great. But he is a good coach when it comes to knowing the game, positioning his players, and making sure that they're doing what they need to do and execute it in practice so that way they can win and be an undefeated team. I'll give him props for that. What I don't want him to do is leave just yet, especially I think people are really gassing it, especially on ESPN, Stephen A. Smith, some other reporters that we look up to put him all the way in the SEC, I think is a stretch, because the SEC is a very, 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 very tough conference. Like, you don't go in there without having those big dogs, big boys, and knowing what you're doing. You can ask Kirby Smart. You can ask all these other teams. You can even ask the former coach of Florida State. It is hard to stay within that job. It is also hard to cultivate a kind of culture where you're consecutively winning and producing playoff appearances every single year. Ask Alabama, ask the University of Miami. It's not easy being in that conference. The Colorado State offer and everything else that's been going on, I feel like if he does it, I'm not against progression, but I feel like it's a little disrespectful for the media to keep pushing this, because, being in the media and doing what we do, I think to us, this is probably being biased, but I think we're the most unbiased that I've heard. And I think it's a little disrespectful that you keep doing that to HBCUs. Like, you got a good thing and then you want to take it from us, when you just told us we need to produce more good things to get where you are. So for PWIs and for other broadcasters to say, oh, well, maybe he should leave because this is the HBCU. We don't know if they're going to get any better. We don't know if they're going to move. We don't know if they're going to maintain this kind of consecutive winning culture, or if they're going to keep having these really, really nice signing days and recruitments. I just feel like it's really disrespectful. And I kind of don't want him to leave. I feel like there's so much more work that he could do with Jackson State, build a little mini empire of sorts. But from there, I think he deserves it. No SEC. I think it's disrespectful that the broadcasters keep saying that he should go there, but I want him to give Jackson State another year. What do you think, Randall? Am I wrong?
So I don't think you're wrong at all. I wish he would stay, and I know that the chatter is going to come. And I'm gonna say two things, because this is two things on my mind. So the first thing is, like, I feel like, and someone's probably said this before. This is the obvious example for a guy, but I feel like Deion Sanders being at Jackson State is like having like a beautiful girlfriend, and it's like, these other guys are looking. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, man. Like, are you secure enough to be with this beautiful woman that all these men want? That's how I sort of feel about Deion Sanders. I feel like we're not. We're in very insecure therapy, okay? Like, no, we're not. We don't want him to leave. We don't want him to go. I don't really want him to leave. I mean, I'm disconnected from it to a certain point because I didn't go to a SWAC school, nor did I go to Jackson State. And I was here, before Deion Sanders was here. You know what I'm saying? I started 2015 as far as, like, being at Fort Valley and being a student. Then I started HBCU Pulse in 2017, and I was covering HBCU stuff as early as 2016. So I know life without Deion Sanders. I know life with Deion Sanders. And, we've gotten views because of Deion Sanders. People have watched, the podcast and listened to the podcast. And, we've had different videos that have gone viral on YouTube and Instagram because it's Deion Sanders. But I'm sort of detached from it, because I knew that he was going to be Eddie Robinson, and not Eddie Robinson in the culture of winning, but Eddie Robinson in being an HBCU lifer, because Eddie Robinson didn't go to an HBCU. And also that was like, the 1960s, 1970s, where he really reigned and was dominant. And he retired in the 1990s. I felt like, that's not fair to sort of have, Deion there, or Coach Prime, because people get mad if I say Deion. But like, I feel like it's not fair, to say, hey, stay here for the rest of your life, when we know that he wants to go higher. We know he wants to coach higher. We know he wants to build upon his legacy. But I just feel as if, like, I wish that we wouldn't always bring it up, and it's going to make us feel a certain type of way, because we don't really know what's in his heart as far as where he wants to go and what he wants to do and when he thinks his time is up. But I will say this, because I said, like, the relationship analogy. Let me say this, because I feel like, I could peek out the window a little bit, and sort of say, just throw a rock and run. I think Deion Sanders is a really good coach as far as setting the culture. And I think a lot of Black coaches are like that for basketball and football. But I don't know if he's the best X's and O's coach. I honestly do not know. It's some questionable decisions that he makes. He has some great coordinators. I don't think he's grown and matured in that way. And I know that there are people who would disagree. And Lord, I got called a beta male last time I said something like this. So don't call me a beta male. Just call me something else. But like, man, I don't think he's the best X's and O's coach. And everyone isn't that. Everyone isn't that. Some folks are great motivators. They're great developers. Deion Sanders, he is an amazing recruiter. And he knows football. But I just think that when it gets to those moments when we have a coach that's a tactician or has more experience, he sort of gets exposed. I think that, Coach Buddy Pugh in the Celebration Bowl sort of exposed him. And the one advantage that Deion Sanders has that sort of trumps the X's and O's style of coaching is you have so much talent. Well, you have Shador at quarterback. You have Travis Hunter on both sides of the ball. So you have all these amazing players, and and as long as he stays at Jackson State, he's going to continue to have great players. So those great players in that system with the quarterback such as Shador, they're going to flourish. Same thing with the defense. He's a defensive guy. So they're going to flourish because they're so talented. But I can't say to Deion Sanders, oh, he's a great X's and O's coach. He knows, hey, like, offense, defense, this is the play to do. Because I can't really say that. What we say often is that Deion Sanders is a great recruiter. But we don't say, man, he coached the hell out of that game. We don't say that. We say, man, he really got a hell of a recruit. That's what we say. So I think that can be an impediment to him at the next level. But no matter where he goes, I'm still watch. Like I'm going with him as far as like watching. But to me, I have sort of like I'm sort of disconnected from the whole entire thing because I'm tired of the conversation. And if he wants to leave, just leave. I mean, we'll get over it. And we were good before he was at Jackson State. We're going to be better after because he did a lot of great things. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to wish him well. And a lot of us are still going to watch him because I am. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I feel about it.
I just, and when you say that, it brought up a point that I hope that his impact is lasting enough that if he did decide to leave, because it's up to him. And I think being who he is, he could do it. I don't think it's a smart move to do now, but he could do it, making sure that his impact is lasting. Because the fear for me is if Jackson State, because the main thing is if he stays, is Jackson State going to pay him the way that he deserves to be paid? Because he deserves to have a raise big time. Y'all went to back-to-back playoffs. You're about to go back-to-back Celebration Bowl. This man deserves the coins that he has done for this program. So that's one of the things. But if they don't keep him, will Deion Sanders iterate that, we still need players to sign and want to be recruited, and make sure that those like 5-star and 4-star recruits are still wanting to go to HBCUs. That's my only thing for me. I think he's done great. And like you said, he sets the culture very well. But make sure when you set the culture stays there. It doesn't just leave with you. Because my fear is if you leave and then you're just like, I want to do better for my son too, and you make your sons leave, it's kind of like, well, if they're leaving because they know they could do better, then I don't have to be here anymore. And then everything that he's done in the past 2, almost 3 years, besides his coaching years, has depleted. So that's just my thing. I have nothing against him. I mean, we all know about our debate with Deion Sanders and what he's done and all that good stuff. But making sure the culture stays where it's supposed to, and if he does, he moves into the right decision. Everything else, I just, like you said, I'm tired of the talk too, but it's just stuff you have to think about. Is Jackson State going to step up? And if Deion Sanders decides to leave, I think he needs to talk to other people what his path is going to look like, but make sure the culture that he had remains at Jackson State.
I'm just listening to us talking. I'm like, they're gonna eat us alive. Like I'm just listening to us talk. So listen, y'all don't eat us alive, y'all. We're just giving our opinion. We on y'all side, okay? I'm about to say something real good about Jackson State, but like I'm just saying I am, because I'm on the HBCU side, of course. I want to just say this. So I understand that, and I'm looking at collegefootballresults.com, one of my favorite websites, because I learned a lot about history of all schools and their football programs. So from 2014 to 2017, Jackson State had 4 losing seasons. They were 5-7 2014, 3-8 2015, 3-8 2016, 3-8 2017. 2018 they were 5-5. 2019 they were 4-8. So of course we know that Deion Sanders came in and became the coach of Jackson State in 2020. Then of course they went 11-2, only losing 2 games. Of course, the Celebration Bowl. And now they're undefeated on this year. But 2013, 8-4, 2012, 7-5, 2011, 9-2, 2010, 8-3, 2009, they had a losing season. But 2008, 7-5, 2007, 8-4. Like, they've had winning seasons in the past 20 years. So this one's I think of, Jackson State was an albatross. Jackson State wasn't winning. It was all Deion Sanders. And it was because he reinvented the program for what it has been these past 2 years. But we have to not get it twisted, because Jackson State is a great football program, and they've won in recent years. Because there are some programs, like if you look at Campbell's record, for example, when we like, Campbell's going to beat these different teams, and we realize, well, North Carolina A&T, they played good against A&T, but A&T beat them. You had Jackson State beat them. North Carolina Central should have beaten them. You know what I'm saying? So they really should be about 3-1? Because I'll give you Delaware State, because Delaware State was okay this year, but North Carolina Central should have beaten Campbell. Jackson State did. North Carolina A&T did. Look at their history. Their history ain't got nothing on Jackson State. There ain't no Walter Payton at Campbell. So it's like that's the part that really irks me, because to be honest with you, I don't think that Jackson State, if he were to leave, is going to just be 0-11. I don't think that. I honestly don't. I think that they're going to be just fine. Now, they're going to be beating everybody, number 1 defense in FCS. Maybe not, but come on, it's Jackson State. They'll be fine. I mean, that's the part that really gets to me. If he leaves, he leaves. But I don't like the dragging of Jackson State and the dragging about how bad HBCUs are as we're talking about it. If he leaves, fine. Are there things we need to fix with HBCUs? Yes, we do. A lot of things. And I can go through the laundry list, and we don't have the time. But we're not the slums. Like I've been saying, we're not the slums. He didn't come to the slums. He came to Jackson State University. Walter Payton. Like we want Shedeur to win the Walter Payton Award. Like the Walter Payton Award, he went to Jackson State. I just that's all I got to say about it. You know what I'm saying? Like I just stop dragging down Jackson State and saying, "Oh, Deion Sanders, they leave's gonna be LeBron James." I don't think that. I think that at the very least they'll be Miami. Like when LeBron left the Heat, they'll be Miami. They got like, they ain't want to be there. You know what I'm saying? They make a couple playoffs. They won't win a championship. But you know what I'm saying? But it's like they'll be that. So like don't do that to them. All right. But let's move on. Speaking of championships, let's talk about the FCS playoffs. So last year, FAMU made it. They made it, and you know we were excited for them to make it again. They started the year. They had 27 ineligible players. They played incredibly well against University of North Carolina, and University of North Carolina had a pretty good year. You know what I'm saying? And Drake May is like that. I've been watching his games. He's a great quarterback. So, you know, that was a great way to start the season, although they had those setbacks. And then, of course, they get beat 59-3 by Jackson State. But by all measurements, they had a very successful season, and they ended 9-2. So they didn't make the FCS playoffs. And there were some schools with significantly worse records that did, but the argument is that they had stronger strength of schedules. Now, during Thanksgiving, because Arielle, we were on break, I had to sort of pop back into action on the D2 side because I saw a lot of folks that were blaming Albany State and saying, hey, this is what happens when you schedule with D2 schools. And my whole entire thing was Albany State's a conference champion. And that was the part I didn't understand, but that was quickly debunked by everybody. And they were saying, no, don't blame Albany State. Y'all got blown out by Jackson State. And I'm like, yeah, you know, that's sort of true. And that's what D2 HBCU football said when we did the video. So I want to get your take on it because North Carolina A&T, you went to North Carolina A&T, and you know about the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? You know about the playoffs, you know about winning, you know about beating out-of-conference opponents. So I want to know this based on you being an Aggie. What do you think about this whole entire FAMU FCS playoff situation?
You told me about this, and I had to go into deep research because I was pissed. I was pissed about the deliberation of how they actually decided that they weren't going. Because in every article that I read and all the research that I was doing, they still were ranked in the top 24. They were only choosing 24 teams. And by the end of the season and making that incredible 9-game winning streak comeback after losing to one in conference and one out of conference game, they ended up number 21 after all the controversy that you said about the ineligible players. And then they got a new athletic director and it was all that mess that was happening. You decided because of the strength of schedule and other teams and at some point it came down to the wire in which some people were saying it was how they finished the game, what they did in the game, and just analytics of yards and rushing and how it all came down to play. And still, after defeating all their standards, you tell them that they can't play. I'm highly disappointed. Just because everything that's happening, they worked so hard. And honestly, looking at everything, there's no definitive reason why they should have done it. And that I think that's what makes me even more heated about the situation.
So I agree with all of your sentiments there. The part that I really go back to, and I went back to this when it came to the D2 playoffs, but it was sort of masked by the fact that, number one, I wanted Fort Valley to get that nod in D2. And also I was very excited for Union, Fayetteville State, and Benedict. But the thing that I really go back to is how much do we value these white spaces? And I've said this a lot on our SIC spaces on Twitter, that how much do we value these white spaces? Because I think that a Celebration Bowl is just fine. And I personally look at the Celebration Bowl now as, you know what? The Celebration Bowl should be the goal. They're the only conference. Well, you have the SWAC and you have the MEAC. The only two FCS conferences to have a bowl game. The rest of them are FBS. D2 doesn't have a bowl game anymore. Pioneer Bowl doesn't exist anymore. To me, that is the goal. You're losing money going to the playoffs. Now, do you want an HBCU to win a national championship? That'd be great. And if FAMU gets it, should they say no? I don't think they should. You know what I'm saying? Because, of course, we know that the SWAC gave up their auto bid to go to the Celebration Bowl. So we know that. And we know that FAMU was number 2 behind Jackson State on last year and they made it. But I like a lot of the talk I've heard from Off Script, who, he works with HBCU League Pass and a lot of other folks. I like the notion that we do an HBCU playoffs. I really like that. And that emerged as a big conversation once FAMU didn't make it, like on the weekend before Thanksgiving, when it came out on that Sunday that they didn't make it. Like, that was a big conversation. And I like that so much better than the playoffs. Because I think that what we do is we try to search for validation from these folks that aren't in the community and it ain't Black, that don't care about what we're doing. But we have such a unique experience from the band. So, the folks care about the Greek life. That like every ESPN game, they say, well, Martin Luther King was an alpha. We know. Like, they love some Greek life. They talk about the Greeks more than the football players. Like, God, who played for Mississippi Valley? Was it Jerry Rice? Was he Greek too? Like, we don't know, because they talk about the Greeks. So we know y'all love that so much. But you got the band, you have the pageantry, you have the Eddie Robinson, Pete Richardson, amazing coaches. There is such a different energy and experience when it comes to HBCU football, specifically in Division I with the SWAC and the MEAC, that I think that we're not selling, because we're trying to get into these white spaces and really get white validation. And it's cool. It's cool to call it out. You know what I'm saying? It's cool to say that, because we have to find validation within who we are. If you're the HBCU national champions, that's fine. Go be that. You won the Celebration Bowl. Because when South Carolina State won, everybody ran with that. Oh, Deion Sanders and his team lost. People ran with it. So how about we put value behind it? Because that's our thing. And then if college sports is supposed to be about making money, you're getting paid upwards of $1-2 million for being in the Celebration Bowl. You roughly lose money when you do the playoffs. So why wouldn't you be happy with the place you get more money and more exposure? Because if you look at it, and I talk about it in my video where I broke down the ratings for the Celebration Bowl, the MEAC SWAC Challenge, as well as the Bayou Classic, for the longest time, from 2015 to 2021, the Celebration Bowl was the only HBCU game on network television. It was on ABC. Other FCS conferences can't say that because they've been on ESPN3 and ESPN Plus, and they want a bowl game. So we got something that other conferences want, and we talking about, no, we want to go to the playoffs. What's the value of the Celebration Bowl? Like, I don't get it. We want validation so badly. I think as humans, we want validation in general, but I think as a community, we want white people to think we're cool. We want other cultures to think we're cool, when we should just think we're cool, and then people will come. Like, that's how I feel about the playoff thing. I went deep, but I already talked about the football side of it when I did the thing. But I've been knee deep in research since Saturday about HBCUs, and I'm like, bro, this is such beautiful history, from the recent records to the history of it to the pageantry, the culture. Why do we care that FAMU didn't make the playoffs? Why do we care? You know what I'm saying? Like, it was like, it's so great. And then FAMU just got to win next year. If Deion Sanders leaves, y'all know what to do. You know what I'm saying? Y'all was number 2. Okay. Now you become number 1. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, FAMU Southern in the SWAC Championship sounds pretty nice if Deion Sanders does leave and Jackson State doesn't keep players or get another high profile or great coach, the great tactician coach. But like, you lost to Jackson State 2 straight years. The first year is a great game. It could have gone either way. But this year you got blown out. You didn't make the playoffs. You want to make it next year? Cool. But I just do not think, in summation, that we should give up culture to go to the playoffs and most likely lose in the first round. Because we shouldn't be saying, oh, let's not schedule Albany State. Let's not schedule Fort Valley. Let's not schedule Benedict. Let's not give them that spotlight so we can go to the playoffs and get dusted in the first round because we don't know how to play out of conference. That's not what I want, because I value the culture more than that. And I believe our culture can make millions and billions if we sit at the negotiation table and really talk through it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's how I look at it. Arielle, what do you think about that? I didn't take it football. I'm knee deep in the media thing. But what do you think, Arielle?
No, because when we start talking about the SWAC championship, I need you to go in on the art. Like, guys, he wrote an amazing article on the viewership of the Bayou Classic. If you haven't read it, please read it, because I found out so much that I didn't even know. Like, you need to know numbers. Call Randall.
Thank you.
That's your guy. That's your man. But I I do agree. I don't want to confuse though us wanting to progress and play bigger and ultimately better teams as trying to erase the culture that we have, because you're right, that is true, and that we do need to keep that. We don't need to try to get other cultures approval where everybody wants to be us. Everybody wants to have that celebratory band, those dancers. They want to have the swag, they want to have our Greek life, they want to have everything that we have, and we don't want it. We need to keep that culture. We need to make sure that we're uplifting that and that it's staying and stamped on us. Now, I wouldn't mind seeing, even if we lose, and sometimes that's how you progress. You gotta fall, you gotta fail. You feel me? But even if FAMU did play a really nice PWI and they lost, I would love to see it, because that's still encouraging to me that, hey, even though we lost, I can still make it. I can still do it. Because at the end of the day, the future is going to progress where we have to do that. It's going to be a sink or swim type thing. So I don't want to, and like I said, you're right. We want to keep the culture, but we also want to progress and still maintain our culture, which sometimes is hard to do. We've seen it happen before. Not going to name names, but with certain HBCUs, when you try to chase things that you don't need to be chased, you lose what you already had. You lose the home that you already built. But that's just me. I do like the idea, and I would have loved if maybe they, Southern and FAMU battled it out. I would have loved to see that, maybe just one more game. But at the end of the day, this is what we got. This is where we're going. If Deion Sanders decides to leave, sorry to say, but maybe FAMU will become number one. I just hate seeing them this number 2 spot back to back, and it's frustrating. But what more can you say, man? What more can you do?
Let me get this, because this popped in my mind. I hope this makes sense, because I feel like I'm on a roll. I hope this makes sense. So I'm a wrestling fan, right? And one thing about wrestling, when you look at the WWE, for example, there's other companies, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan. There's other wrestling companies, but the WWE, of course, is the most prominent because they were really the first to really, go out there and go crazy. And of course, they beat the WCW and bought them, so that was a big thing too. But one thing about wrestling in the WWE that I really would love for the SWAC to sort of appropriate in all of our HBCU conferences is that the WWE doesn't try to be a sport. They're sports entertainment. They're wrestling. They're not changing for nobody. Like everybody's favorite wrestler is a guy that's supposed to be undead, the Undertaker. That his eyes roll back. It takes him 20 minutes to walk to the ring because he's just so menacing and scary. Like they didn't try to say, oh, this is LeBron James, this is Tom Brady. No, this guy is supposed to be undead and you can't kill him. Like that's what he's supposed to be. It's like, hey, listen, this is what it is. We do these crazy storylines, we do all this different stuff, but it's great athletes, it's great entertainment. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's serious. You get invested into these storylines. It's like theater, but it's athletics. And they did fight to get sort of that recognition from the mainstream in bringing in folks like Ronda Rousey, Logan Paul, and folks like that. But they didn't say we're a sport now. We're sports entertainment. And they say we tell stories. We do this and that. I wish that HBCU conferences, especially the SWAC, could just lean into that. We are an HBCU conference that primarily services Black people. That is our target market. We have a rich history. We have bands, we have Greek life, we have great coaches, great players. Here it is. If you don't like it, that's okay. Go turn on the Georgia game. That's fine. Go turn on Alabama. But if you do like it and this does interest you, watch it. Donate. It's fun because in business you can't attract everybody. And the WWE understood that. And what happened is that they became a world-renowned brand and they reached so many different audiences. Why can't the SWAC do that? Because other conferences don't say, I wonder what Randall and Arielle think about. No, they don't care. Only these HBCU conferences care about, well, we want to go to the playoffs to prove we can beat the non-HBCUs. Who cares? If Jackson State or FAMU or Fort Valley or North Carolina A&T plays all Black schools for their schedule, I could care less. I really could, because I'm like, hey, well, that means they're the Black national champion. That's what that was made for. So that's really the thing that I go into. Is like, I just feel like a lot of the conversation around the playoffs in D2 as well Because, when we make the playoffs, no HBCU has won the D2 national championship, and Winston-Salem got close, and they got beat by Valdosta, which, of course, that's why I can't stand Valdosta on the football field. Great school. I know a lot of folks that went there, and I heard it's really good school, but I don't like them in football because they always beat the HBCUs, except Albany State. Fort Valley beat them. I didn't mention that in the video I did about Gabe Gardena. Fort Valley did beat Valdosta 2 straight years, 98 and 99, I believe. So we've beaten Valdosta before, all right? But they keep beating the HBCUs, and in recent memory, we haven't beat them. Ever since I've been able to walk and talk, we've not beat Valdosta, okay? Albany has, though. You know what I'm saying? So, for me, I just feel like we have to embrace our culture, because I think there's money in our culture, and we have to figure out how to market to our culture and super serve this culture and create lifelong things. And I think from there, almost like hip hop, other folks are going to come that aren't in our community that think it's cool. And I think other people already do, but we're trying to chase this level of validation that I think that as we try to chase it, we're not getting it. You know what I'm saying? And I just think that, we have to be smarter in how we handle business. You know what I'm saying? Really market the culture and where it's at. But I wanted to say this before we move on. So did the WWE reference make sense, or did it make no sense at all?
It makes sense. It literally encompassed everything. And when you said that, I was thinking High School Musical, but more serious. Like High School Musical. Yeah, because WWE, they.
Oh, you talking about stick to the status quo? You talking about stick to the status quo guy? Oh, not him.
No, I'm thinking about in general, because High School Musical, they were athletes just like WWE was athletes, but they're also entertainment because they was a musical, they were singing, and he was doing both, and that's the WWE. They doing the same thing. We're here to entertain you, but we were athletes.
I never would have taken it there. I thought you were talking about when they had that black basketball player. That man wanted, I think, to cook, and they said, no, stick to what you know. Stick to the status quo.
Listen, a black man that can cook. Let's not downplay that. But
they were downplaying no Disney. They had all of us like, you know what? I shouldn't cook. Like the power of media. I shouldn't cook. Why am I cooking? I just stick to what I know.
Your reference makes sense. Your reference makes sense. HBCU, stick to what you know. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong. The audience will come. The audience will come.
Listen, they told that black man, listen, you better stick to basketball, sir. Don't try to venture out and cook and clean and be a good adult. You better play basketball. So the Bayou Classic. So, we're here. Of course, we're talking about Division I. We're talking about championships. The same way we're talking about with Division II. And it's exciting because it feels big, man. The Bayou Classic, first and foremost, as you point out, I appreciate it. I'm not that great at math, so I'm glad someone says I'm good at numbers. So that's really good. No, I'm not good at math at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't say it was the truth. But the Bayou Classic had 720,000 viewers on NBC. It was the first time since 2014 that the Classic was on network television. So I think that first and foremost, before we talk about, the game, I think that's admirable. And I don't want to bloviate about it because we're, running out of time, but, you can watch my videos up now about, this the Bayou Classic and those numbers in the article. But, just the game itself, the atmosphere of the game felt very much like a HBCU game. Because a lot of the games they feel like an HBCU playing in a college football game. You know what I'm saying? But they had like Set It Off, with Boosie playing. They had these black, soundtracks. My guy Michael Smith was there. He tweeted me back. I was like, what? Michael Smith tweeted me back. I was like, my guy Michael Smith. I'm an OG His and Hers fan. He tweeted me back. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, man, that's my guy. That's my guy. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm very proud whenever I see him. But I just like the atmosphere. And then, of course, we'll say this and move on to the football. That guy that was on the camera was not smoking a blunt. He was heating up ribs. Still very weird, very much so weird. He was not smoking a blunt, and I hate that was the takeaway from the class, and not the hurdle, like you talk about the hurdle. That was the takeaway. The takeaway wasn't he jumped over dude. It was, is he smoking a blunt or is that a rib? It was a rib. It was still weird. It was like, because you say that, take it home and heat it up. We have air fryers now. You gotta have a lighter. Like, you burn somebody, burn the thing. Come on, man, it's crazy. But to talk about football, I want to just toss to you first. Like, what did you think about the Bayou Classic and Southern, of course, winning the Bayou Classic, and then they're heading on to play Jackson State on this weekend.
The atmosphere was giving you got served, like the end battle, like all the theatrics come at me with everything that you got. That is, maybe we could toss it to I forgot the Step movie that had Chris Brown where he died in the first 5 minutes.
Stomp the Yard.
Yes, it was giving that beginning. That's literally what this game was. I'm telling you, the biggest. This is where I'm talking about the Grambling effect. They started so well defensively and offensively. If you haven't been following Grambling has been doing a lot of quarterback switches, and they decided for this game they were going to go with their true freshman Calvez. And I was actually very proud of his performance. It wasn't a bad performance at all. He went 13 for 27 passing, 152 yards, 1 touchdown pass, and a touchdown run. His interception came in late. It was going towards the 2-minute warning in the fourth quarter, and he was sacked 7 times. But other than that, his stats don't look to the performance that he put on. He actually played very well for a freshman, and I'm glad that they are coaching up the next quarterback that will be at Grambling. Now, the coaching, I don't know, because Grambling has been up and down and they weren't producing the way that they usually are, because Grambling produces a really great football program. This year just happened to be not their year. But the big three, Washington Williams and Chalk, one of the best running backs in D1 right now, if I could say, in HBCU football, both putting up crazy numbers. Chalk, the fourth, he is a fourth, rushed the ball 8 times for a career high of 120 yards. Check this out, Randall. He averaged 15 yards per carry. Each time he touched the ball, he was running for 20 plus yards. This man was unstoppable, rolling through people, dropping his shoulders just like how you teach them. And then you had the incredible hurdle by the UAB transfer Bean. I literally rewatched it on the replay 5 times. The hurdle was so clean, and then got more yards after the play. That's what Grambling teaches and what they're really good at, teaching players how to get yards after the play. But just like the Falcons and A&T, they are not a second half team. They were doing good in the first half. They were stalled, though, until the second quarter. They led 7-0, and then all of a sudden, Southern just came back. And honestly, I think Southern's only weapon is their quarterback, Bashawn McCray. He went 7 out of 17 for 75 yards. He did have a rushing score and a pass score. This man can run. And when they play in the SWAC Championship, which we'll talk about later, when Southern plays them, I think that is one of the major threats, because we both said this, I think, offline, that Shedeur Sanders is really not a runner. If he can, at all means, he's going to stay in the pocket and pass, but he has the time to do that. Southern's quarterback McCray being a dual threat like that, I think, is what's going to help them in this game. Also having Carl LeJohn, he had a good game, 57 yards, 13 carries, and a score. And then you had Kendrick Grimes. They're not the best wide receivers compared to when you look at Jackson State, but they got the game together. But it was their defense. The defense was absolutely, the pops, the fumbles that they caught, the forced fumbles that they caught, the 7 sacks that they had. Kristen Davis was the one that had that pick 6 run for 42 yards. And then there was an interception on that as well. And then Jordan Carter had the fumble recovery. So at the end of the game just got sloppy towards the end. And that's where Grambling really struggles, like I said, with second quarter and just trying to stay on point and on focus. They do so well, and I think the jitters really got to that true freshman where he's been sacked 7 times, and then you have a forced fumble, and you get the ball knocked out, and then you have 1 interception. That's how you lose a game. It was but the Bayou Classic, I felt like a playoff game. That right there in the Superdome in Louisiana was the best thing that I've ever watched. But do you have any opinions on it? Because I can go on and on. I mean, the score speaks for itself. Southern deserved that win just because of what Grambling did, but I was amazed. And this probably, to me, was my SWAC championship, what I wanted to see, honestly.
So I have a lot of opinions, and I feel what you're saying. But so here's my thing on it. So if I told you that Grambling had 201 rush yards, 152 passing yards, they led in both categories, and Bashawn, and good dude, shout out to him, he's a great runner, only completed 7 passes and threw for 75 yards, what would you think? Like, you would think, oh, how much did Southern lose by? No, like Grambling was literally in the box score. And with the eye test, they were the better team. They honestly were. Like, they were the better team. But like Bisan, he has to. I want him to be better with throwing, because I feel like he's a talent and he's an athlete, but I just don't think he's a quarterback. And I used to be like, what do you mean by that? Like, what do you mean he's not a quarterback? I understand now. When it's like, it is certain players that would be better at another position. Now, I hear that a lot about my guy, Lamar Jackson, and if we have time, we'll talk about that. But, like, he would be better as a running back, honestly. And I think he's out of position, because to only connect on 7 passes, but you rush for, this amazing amount of yards. Like I just, like, that's not a winning formula. You know what I'm saying? That sort of almost leads to my Jackson State Southern prediction. But if Grambling had a better quarterback, if they had Devontae Kincaid from back in the day when I really started watching HBCU football, when I was at Fort Valley, 2015, 2016, 2017, and you had Grambling that played A&T in the Celebration Bowl, and you had Grambling that won the second Celebration Bowl against North Carolina Central 10-9. If we had that Devontae Kincaid type energy from the quarterback, Grambling wins and the score is probably flipped. Maybe it's like, I don't know, maybe it's by 1 touchdown, maybe, because of course you had the the recovery, and that went to a touchdown, what I'm saying? But, like, I feel like the game is totally different because Grambling doesn't have that dynamic quarterback that can really make plays. And that's the same thing I said against Jackson State. If you had like a Devontae Kincaid or an equivalent great quarterback, I think that, Grambling wins most of these games. This is a different season, and maybe they play Jackson State in the SWAC Championship. But I think that with Grambling and Hugh Jackson and his crew, I think they had a really good game to start out, but what hurt them is poor play calling, and they do not have the quarterback that can really destroy a defense the way almost like Shedeur is. You got Andrew Body, you got Jeremy Musa. They don't have that guy at Grambling just yet, but maybe in the offseason when Hugh Jackson gets another recruiting cycle, they go out and get him. But Basan's a great runner. He led the team in rushing. My thing is, like, I don't understand, even as a Lamar Jackson fan, I don't understand how quarterbacks get more running yards than their running backs. I don't get it, because Eric Phoenix did the same thing during the Tuskegee game, and I think the Wingate game. So he sort of did like the same thing. I don't really understand that, to be honest with you, because it's like in the name it says running back. You know what I'm saying? Like, why are you running more than the running back? You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make sense to me, but like it works for him, and it got him to the win, and it got him down the field. And the fact that Southern scored 3 of their 4 touchdowns on the ground, I think that says a lot about their offense and who they are. But they have to get better at that position against the Jackson State. And I think going into next year, because I think that's going to hurt them a whole lot. And, like you said, like Kristen Davis, he iced that game with that 42-yard pick on Julian Calvez. You say he's true freshman. Like, Kristen Davis got him on that one. 42-yard pick 6 at Grambling's 42-yard line. 2 minutes, 8 seconds left in the game. Ran it in there. Killed it. The game was 28-17. So Grambling was still very much so in the game. If they go down and score a touchdown, now it's a different game. It could be 28-25 with 2-point conversion. But, he gets that pick 6, and that ends the game. And you just felt the life go out of Grambling. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like, the game was great. The atmosphere was great. Arielle, like, nothing in this game, nothing at all, makes me confident that Southern is going to beat Jackson State this week. As a matter of fact, I'm even less confident. I'm less confident. I'm basically scared. I feel like I'm wasting my time watching this game. Like, I honestly feel like I feel like just let me know who wins. You know what I'm saying? They're not gonna be Jackson State. If they do put this out, say I was wrong, I will wear it. I've been wrong before. I'm human. But if someone puts this out and I say Southern's gonna lose, can I state my case? Can I please state my case? Like, look at this game. Grambling led in both categories. Southern's defense is really good. Dumas is really good. They have a great defense down there. And the defense played pretty well against Jackson State. You know what I'm saying? On October the 29th, when College Game Day was down there, they played really well against Jackson State. But they're not going to beat Jackson State because it's like you cannot play a game like this. You can't have your quarterback like throw for 75 yards and think you're going to win. And then let's say by some stroke of luck they do. Let's say that, let's say the Deion Sanders rumors are getting to the players and they're human. So they're like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. Am I going to transfer? And they all in their head and, you know, all the different stuff. And they just go out there and they just punt the game and then Southern steals one. They're not going to win the championship against North Carolina Central. Like, you're not going against Davius Richards completing 7 passes for 75 yards. That's not happening. It's like they're going to lose either way. Like, they're waiting for a loss. You know how Shannon Sharp says he's serving hot L's in his restaurant? They're waiting for a hot L when they get home, like they're the man of the house. That's what they're waiting for at this point. Because it's like you can't do that. And power to that brother, like Bassam McCray, but he has to be better. Power to him. You know what I'm saying? He's a student athlete. I support him, and I think he's talented. I think he has a place on this team, but just not a starting quarterback. I think maybe put him in the running back position. Maybe I don't know if they play Wildcat, but play more Wildcat. I don't know what they got to do. But the quarterback position is a problem, and I think that's going to elude them against a better team in Jackson State. And even if they were to beat Jackson State, which they're not, that's going to elude them against a North Carolina Central team because you're not going tit for tat with Shedeur Sanders nor Davius Richards.
You know, and you were just saying that, and I was thinking about the Saints, you know, how they do those little quarterback sneaks with Andy Dalton. And I don't know why the other man escapes me. It's not Simeon, but it's another quarterback or the team. Like, every time he enters, he ran straight through the Falcons in our first meeting. And I'm just sitting here like, when did they develop this system? And I wouldn't mind seeing McCray do that. But I haven't seen another quarterback that's come through Southern that's proven to me that they'll be okay without McCray being the starter. I personally think the reason why he ran it so much is you don't have a backfield just like how Central does. Davius Richards is able to be a dual threat quarterback because he knows the weapons that he has. If he can't do it himself, he can trust other people. And I think that's what with the game on the line and wanting to go to that SWAC championship, I feel like that's maybe what he was thinking. I can't say for sure that I need to do everything in my power to win this game, but there's no I in team. You have to learn how to trust your other players, because as good as Southern's defense is, and it is, and they proved that's not what's going to win the game against Jackson State. Like, there is a very, 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 very like 0.00000, maybe I'll throw a 9 in there, 9.8, that you are going to win against Jackson State. But especially the way that your offense is playing, I don't believe it. And I'm not gonna lie, devil's advocate again, I'm hoping for an upset. Like, I would love, because we thought Alcorn was going to do it. Then we thought Southern was going to do it. We maybe thought Alabama State was going to get their lick back and didn't. So for me, I don't want them to go to the Celebration Bowl and lose, because I think that kind of just speaks to the team, not Deion Sanders as a coach, but it speaks to the team about what they're doing down there, that you can be so good, but you can't win a Celebration Bowl. I'd rather you lose the SWAC championship than go all the way and lose again. I think that would hurt more. But, like I said, I'm pulling for an upset. Somebody's got to beat them. And if they don't, congrats. But it's definitely not going to be Southern the way that they were playing.
So we agree. So someone has to beat them. And we also agree that it's not Southern. Okay. We agree on that at this point. If anybody is North Carolina Central, and we'll talk about that more on next week. But let's really quickly talk about the SWAC Championship, 2022 SWAC Championship out here, Jackson State versus Southern University, rematch, Boombox Classic. Jackson State beat Southern 35-0 on October the 29th, the day that ESPN College Game Day came on campus, but the game was on ESPN3. That's still funny. How you bring a whole historic pregame show just for it to be online? But this game gonna be on ESPN2, so there's that. You know what I'm saying? Come back, College Game Day. Tell them to come back. Like we on ESPN2 this time. But so Southern lost 35-0. And there's nothing that can convince me that Southern's going to win this game. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. There's nothing earthly possible that can convince me that Southern's going to win this game. Honestly, and I've said this before, I'm a big fan of Southern just by proxy. Like the two schools I could have seen myself going to if it wasn't Fort Valley is A&T too, A&T to a certain degree, but like FAMU and Southern to a certain degree, A&T, FAMU and FAMU and Southern. Like I really am a fan of those two institutions, both on and off the field. I think that they're amazing schools, and I find myself rooting for them no matter what game it is. Like the Bayou Classic, I was rooting for Southern. Like when they got that pick six, I was like, yes. I jumped up. I'm like, yes. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I just naturally root for Southern, you know, but we can't count on Rashawn McCray. I have stats to back this up. Just by stats, not by feelings, by stats. October 29th versus Jackson State, Arielle, 9 of 26 in passing for 85 yards, 1 interception, no touchdown, sacked 3 times. Jackson State has one of the top defenses in FCS, if not the top, if we look at the numbers. Bayou Classic, 7 of 17, 75 yards, 0 passing touchdowns. You're not going to run on Jackson State. You're not running on them. You need a dynamic quarterback who's going to win you the game for real. Like you're not running on Jackson State for real. So if you look at October 29th, Southern rushed for 136 yards, and that number is lopsided because of the 52-yard run that Gerard Sims had that really turned into nothing because they didn't score. They didn't get a field goal. They didn't get a touchdown. So that was a 52-yard run for nothing. So let's just say, let's do math. I'm not that good at math, but I mean, I can subtract. So 136 minus 52 is 84. So they rushed for 84 yards minus that play against Jackson State. Now they rushed well against Grambling, but Grambling isn't Jackson State. Grambling gives up 190 yards rushing a game. Southern rushed for 181 and had 3 touchdowns on the ground. You know what I mean? So like for me, looking at the numbers, Jackson State ain't the team that you're going to run on for real. So how are you going to score? Because you didn't score in the first game. Like, what are you going to do this time? You know, because the defense played well. It wasn't the defense. Southern didn't get outclassed. Like, it was a point where FAMU got outclassed against Jackson State. Southern didn't get outclassed. They just got outscored because the defense showed up. And then you had that first drive with Deion Sanders. He went for the fourth down conversion. He tried to go for it on 4th down, and it didn't work. And then Southern stopped him. You know what I'm saying? They had some great stops. If you have a quarterback that goes in there and moves down the field for a field goal or gets a touchdown, we're looking at a drastically different game, but it just simply did not happen. So on Southern side, I just believe that they can't win. And just really quickly, I'll say about Jackson State before I talk about you, Arielle, is that Jackson State, like I said, they're very talented and they've been tested. I think they're really a team with championship DNA. But the problem is they haven't seen a quarterback that can solve their defense. And they haven't seen a really dynamic quarterback for real, arguably, since Jeremy Musa, who didn't do that well versus them, Howard Malik Williams for Campbell. He did okay. He was all right, but Howard Malik Williams is a better quarterback. I think he played a little bit better against A&T than he did against Jackson State, and that might have been because of Jackson State's defense. And, of course, Andrew Body is a great quarterback. Andrew Body did okay versus Jackson State. And I don't think they're going to face a dynamic quarterback that can really solve their defense and that they have to game plan for until they play Davius Richards versus, like North Carolina Central. You know what I'm saying? So like, I honestly think that, that's going to be what eludes Southern, but that's what's going to hurt Jackson State is like when you play North Carolina Central, because I think they're going to win the championship. When you play North Carolina Central, you playing a different quarterback. So are you going to be able to game plan and stop Davius Richard? Like, that's really the question. Because, but the thing that could hurt Jackson State is, and this isn't in my notes, this is just from how I feel. The thing that could hurt Jackson State is the outside noise. That could hurt them because the chatter about Deion Sanders possibly leaving and all these different jobs popping up and him not definitively saying, no, I'm not going, which of course in a negotiation, if he's planning to go, he can't say that. But the fact that there's sort of an open-endedness to those rumors, that could put your head in the clouds a little bit. That could make you sort of figure out and think, yo, what's going to happen? Do I stay here? Am I going to transfer with him? Like, what's going to happen? Because that's just the business of college sports. Do I think that's going to happen? I don't really think so, because I think they want to go to the Celebration Bowl and win because they didn't win last year. But I think that these players are human. And I know for me, I would feel a way about that. And hopefully, and Deion Sanders is a great man, and I think he's a great communicator. So I think all of those things combined together, I think he had to sit down with his team, no cameras, nothing like that, and told them, listen, y'all, I'm gonna be real with y'all. There are jobs that's looking at me, and for the right job, I might leave. But I'm here right now, and I'm present right now with Jackson State right now. So we can go out and win. Like I think that hopefully he's had that conversation. I don't know if he has. I have no source on that. But I think if he hasn't, he should, because that could be what loses. I think Southern doesn't beat Jackson State. I think Jackson State beats Jackson State. If Travis Hunter's thinking, man, I can't Jackson State to play with Deion Sanders, I guess I'm leaving with him, right? You know what I'm saying? These other folks where it's like, well, I mean, like, can I play at the Power 5 level? Like, or can I play at the Group of 5 level? Like I think that could beat them. And then possibly if Southern does find a way to run the ball, maybe Bassan makes us all look crazy. Well, not me, because you said he's a dual threat. I don't think he's a dual threat. I think he's a great runner. But let's say he proves me wrong, and I'm like the guy that motivated him. I'm gonna be like, I sure did say you couldn't throw, because I'm a real one. I said you couldn't throw, you threw. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna be like, yeah, no, I'm a real one. You know what I'm saying? But like maybe he does throw. But I just don't see it for Southern winning. But I think that if Jackson State beats itself and they're in their head because of what the press conference could be, or what next week could be leading into Celebration Bowl, or even what after the Celebration Bowl could be when Deion Sanders says, I'm going to USF, or I'm going to Colorado, or I'm going to this school that was talking to me that just emerged. I think that could really be the problem.
When you were saying Jackson State can only be Jackson State, it just kind of reiterates that Jackson State is a very superior team. Like, even if you do win against them, is it really a win? Knowing who they are and their history. Like you can say that. I feel like you can say that in playoffs, and you can say that well, I don't know, in this playoff particular situation, Southern can be proud of a win. But mostly if it was a different competitor in the playoff, and if it was a Celebration Bowl, you could say that you beat Jackson State. But at this very moment, you're right. Only Jackson State can beat Jackson State. And I personally believe, I have hope and I have faith that I think he did have that conversation, because it's all in the news, and you got to make sure that your players keep their head in the game. But back to what I was saying, I do want to recant my statement. I don't think McCray is a dual threat. I do think there's a difference between being a dual threat and you can do both things, but one really well. So Davius Richards is a dual threat. We know he can pass. We know he can run. He can use his legs. But Sean McCray, and I'm gonna prove this in stats for this season, he is an okay quarterback. He can run, and sometimes that's what you need. But when it comes to throwing, you have been shaky, and you were even shaky in this last game. He only has two weapons that he can use, between Kedrick Grimes, which is his running back, and another running back, which is Carl LeJean. His wide receiver depth is very, very low. So we're not going to see him make those really nice Hail Mary passes or those 20-plus yard passes, because we know Jackson State, and they have a really good defense, and they're actually really good when it comes to man-to-man coverage. You're not missing that on Jackson State, especially on their defense. So only having your running game, and they know that's the only thing you have, and especially if they know this quarterback likes to run a lot, they're already going to cut that in the first half. And that's what worries me. Jackson State knows how to get up and get going when it comes to the first half, especially the first quarter. Southern is not that kind of team, especially with the lack of depth that they have of trying to make plays happen. Because after the third quarter, you didn't see much of Kendrick Grimes. You didn't see much of Carl or John after that. It was basically the defense. The defense were forcing those fumbles. The defense had an interception. The defense had a turnover on downs. The defense was stopping at 4th and short. But Sean McCray didn't do anything for them. So that's one of my main concerns. But also this, when we talk about stats and why he isn't as great as Shedeur Sanders. Throughout this whole season, he's 58%. Shedeur Sanders is looking close to 75%. That's a huge difference. And then you look at them defensively, because I was trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. Jackson State is 38% more productive in defense than they are versus Southern. And this is just their top 3 players. So you're looking at a defense from Jackson State that they're looking, and as soon as you throw the ball, they're ready to intercept it, they're ready to bat it down, or they're going to not let you get to the person that you were aiming for, that you had locked in, and that's a target. So you're thinking about, I have a quarterback and I don't know a solution for him. I only have 2 main running backs and I have maybe 1 wide receiver that's going to do it for me. And now I'm playing against a defense that outrates me, out tackles me, out fumbles me, out pressures me. And Jackson State is known to put the pressure, especially in the pocket. There is statistically and realistically no way that Southern wins. Do they get beat bad? No. I am never going to say that. I feel like Southern can hold their own like most teams have. I feel like Southern might hold a little bit better, honestly, and I could be wrong, than Alabama State. They might show some fight in them, but not enough fight where they're going to go through and feel satisfactory about themselves. Because if the only thing that helps me beat Jackson State is they worry if I'm losing a coach or not, that's sad. You need to think of another game plan than this. And if I was Southern's coach, I would be thinking of what other weapons, like what other freshmen do I have? Because these running backs are freshmen. You're looking at freshmen. You're looking at the next installment of your team. You need to start pulling out that roster, because other than that, hey, McCray is going to get crushed. You can't run against Jackson State. They will hurt you and you will be out for the rest of the game. And then you really losing at that point. So sorry, Southern, if you're listening. We do love you. We do support you, just not in this instance specifically.
But, I just personally believe that, you can't predict sports, and it's all about what happens on the field, but also what's going on mentally. That's why I say the caveat that if Jackson State beats himself, I think that is going to go another way, and Southern should capitalize on that if that is the case. But let's go on and get out of here. Arielle, where can we find you on social media?
You can follow me on Twitter at @screwy__, or go to my website at www.theunexedopinion.weebly.com.
So I got a lot to plug this week. So first and foremost, we have a big announcement that is coming up on my birthday. My birthday is Christmas Day, December 25th, 1996. It's not happening in 1996. It's happening in 2022. But it's going to be, a big announcement that's coming on that day. And Arielle's going to know about it after this. Like, it's a big announcement coming on that day. She already knows, but, it's big. But also, I really would love if you all could check out my article about the Bayou Classic numbers, as well as my video about the ratings breakdown of the Celebration Bowl, the Bayou Classic, the SWAC Challenge, and also the Orange Blossom Classic. Because honestly, and I don't have the time to really truly get into it here, I just believe that we have to value our product more. And I think the biggest reason why HBCUs aren't getting the visibility that it should is because we're in bad deals. And I think it's insane that in 2022, in a post-2020 world, we're supposed to value Black life and Black spaces. We only have now 2 HBCU games that's on network television. I think that's insane. Yeah, you have ESPN that does distribute these games, and ESPN Plus and whatnot. We can go into the quality of the games, but there's no reason why Fox and NBC shouldn't have more games, and Fox shouldn't have a game, and CBS shouldn't have a game. I know that, the out-of-conference money games, I think that Alabama A&M versus UAB game was on CBS Sports, but I'm talking about like CBS, like Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and like Nancy O'Donnell CBS. That's what I'm talking about. So I go into that a whole lot, and I think it's just important. Probably the most important work I've done, because I'm really into media, but I feel like with this one, I struck gold, and hopefully, Dr. Holloman with the SIAC. He was the AD at Fort Valley, and he was with the FSU Foundation. He was there when I was there. Dr. Charles McClellan and other HBCU conference leaders. You have Dr. Kiki Barnes with the GCAC. Hopefully they listen, because I just think that we should value our product more. So that's all out now. It took a while to get it out, but it's out now. Please go watch it and go support it and go share it. But also you follow HBCU Pulse on Instagram at HBCU Pulse, YouTube, type in HBCU Pulse, you'll find us. Twitter and TikTok, the HBCU Pulse. Make sure to follow HBCU Pulse on our podcast feeds, HBCU Pulse Radio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. And also, last but not least, you can watch the HBCU Pulse channel on HBCU League Pass Plus. We are channel 201. By the side of that, thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, we'll see you on the other side for Celebration Bowl preview. Jackson State versus North Carolina Central. Let's be real. All right. Talk to y'all later. Let's be real here.
Like what you hear?
Yeah.
Subscribe to HBCU Pulse Radio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, head to hbcupulse.com to stay up to date on what's going on in the HBCU community. Thank you for listening to HBCU Pulse Radio.